Found myself wanting to play some chess today, so let's get it. As we take on the blood orange. Alright, let's do something a bit different. Let's go with Rossolimo. And that's about where my theoretical knowledge ends. Probably D3 was already suspect, but I'm going to just play some reasonable enough looking ideas here. I'm thinking Queen D2, B3, Bishop B2, and Knight A4 to try to trade off the bishop pair. And as he's doing this, I definitely do not want to take, I can't take that way, but I definitely do not want to take the uncouple the pawns. So let's go ahead and just give him some chances to fumble around in the position here. D4 I feel is not a good move, because I'm able to easily play B3 next unless he sacks the pawn for play in order to shut things down. And it's very King's Indian-esque, the pawn structure. And as I'm a big fan of that, let's get it. Alright, I was thinking about Knight D2, Knight C4, but I don't even know if that's necessary. F5 is going to come eventually, so let's go ahead and play Knight G3, prophylaxis against F5, so we're focusing on this E-pawn a good bit. I expect a move like Queen C7 at a certain point. If Bishop G5, he'll play H6. And I'm not sure. Let's go Bishop D2, just to stay flexible, and see if we can't do a little test and see in the position. I'm not too worried about F5 because of the mentioned idea of the E-pawn getting a bit weak. Alright, well, that helps get rid of the bishop pair if you want to do that. You don't, makes sense. I do have Knight G5, but I want to slip in Queen C1 in the meantime. That was the reason I waited on Bishop G5. I wanted control over the G5 and H6 square. But if I would have played Bishop G5, stutter stepped, and then played Queen C1, he would have King H7 to defend the H6 pawn. So here I'm thinking that he is just losing some material after I take, because the E-pawn is a bit weak. So we'll see what he does. Okay, and if Knight takes E5, Knight takes G3, do I have Knight takes C6 in between? It's getting interesting. Alright, I know Knight takes E5 is good, because worst case scenario I can just simply take back, and then I have a follow-up with a move like Bishop F4, and especially if Queen C7, we have those types of ideas. So I'm going to go ahead and pre-move that. Taking either knight doesn't look good for black. Black's a pawn down, and his structure's still compromised from that Rossolimo capture on C6 early in the game. Okay. I respect what you're telling me. Knight F3 could be Knight takes G3 and then Bishop takes H3, undermining the knight. So I'm actually going to go Knight G4 and say, do you want to give me triple pawns? Not normally an offer I want to make, but I feel good about the resulting position. And so does my opponent. Whose feelings serve them better? Alright, so you want to go that way? Well, I will put the question. Do you want to fix the pawns that you work so hard to create? It's not often you see triple pawns be good. I think this is one of those cases where it's keeping my king tucked away, nice and safe. I feel good about that. Okay. There. Well, let's simply go Queen D2, because if we can trade a whole bunch, we are at the end of the day up a pawn, even though it's a goofy looking pawn. I'll take it. I will definitely take it. That. Don't want to spoil the time edge. Okay. And I'm going to start with that just to defend a little bit and say endgame. Okay. So I'll just want to go there, cover the key squares. He's looking for that, so let's go ahead and decline. We got our trade and we get our win. No perpetuals, no chances, and time trouble for our opponent. Let's go ahead and secure everything, make sure he has no chances anywhere, and just stutter steps don't hurt anything. Hard for him to make a move. There's no easy weaknesses to get to. Alright, so let's analyze a bit and see how I could have done better, because I have not studied the white side of the Rossolimo since probably before some of my viewers were born. So let's take a look. Castles was okay, and then D3 is third choice with only 90 games. Rook E1 does seem more pure. Makes a lot more sense, because if he makes a move like D5, I'm already supported like we saw in the game. And the most fashionable move is Knight H6, followed by Knight F6. Let's take a look at Knight F6 first, just because I have curiosity. Okay. And we seem to get an Alekhine-esque type flavor where we kick the knight around here. And white just looks good versus Knight F6. Kick it around. Got it. So what about Knight H6? C3. Do we have to play C3? Are we looking to open this position up against the bishop pair? That's just something that sticks out to me. I would be more likely to wait around and play like I did in the game. When in doubt, play solid. And this type of position just really isn't to my liking for white. I would prefer it for black because it's gradually opening up. I do understand there's some pawn weaknesses, but I like the bishop pair better here. I would take black in this position. So not the biggest fan. Knight H6 may be, I mean, I'm starting to understand why it's a recommended move. But yeah, seems to be that C3 is still scoring better for white. You got to go with your preferences, but good to know. All right, so bishop G7. I played D3, and let's check the engine as we go here. Rook B8 makes sense, hitting the B pawn and just simply defending that. And had he waited around here and played normal enough moves, like say Queen C7, I was actually going to go Queen D2, and after D6, I was going to play B3, and that shuts down my idea, which makes sense. Now I would need to reformulate what I was going to do, and I would probably go with something a lot like I did in the main game with Knight E2, and then I'm going to take a while to organize my pieces. So not the worst situation in the world, but definitely, I mean, black's starting to get something going here. So probably could have done better, but that's the thing about playing weird systems. Sometimes your opponent will follow you and play weird things as well. D5 was played, and then my first reaction is, of course, you do not want to take, because that does nothing but fix the entire reason for giving up the bishop pair and playing the Rossolimo. So don't help your opponent's pawn structure. Rook E1, and after D4, Knight A4 does make a lot of sense because it puts pressure on that weak pawn, but I'm thinking more about the maneuverability, and wow, it likes Knight D2 anyway. And see, what I was thinking was after castles and then Knight C4, Bishop A6 or Bishop E6, and I didn't want to allow this because I felt like him getting rid of the bishop pair and then evening out the double pawns, I didn't see myself having a big advantage here. But as the engine's recommending this bishop A3 idea, again, that double pawn is much harder to maintain than mine because I've got an anchor. All right, making sense. Learning things in this game. This is why I like to get outside of my comfort zone and play openings that I really don't know much about other than the first handful of moves. I feel like I learn when you guys learn. with some of these. And this overall, I think, was a bad move. Bishop d2 is to me, it's telegraphing I want to go queen c1 and control. So h6 if queen c1, king h7, and then I need to come up with a plan. So like h3, I'm waiting on black to do something, but he has more waiting moves. Okay, well I'll go a4. All right, well he's going queen c7, and we've got rough equality here, which this was the type of position that I was thinking about in the game. Probably something like queen a3, and we're back to that idea with trying to bother that pawn. But in the main game, when he goes bishop g4, he's immediately having to admit that he's wrong, not wanting to give the bishop pair there, and this is just busted at this point. And you got to look for something like f6, and I would be a happy guy to trade off the bishops in the situation, have the healthy pawn structure, closed position with the knights, do work. But f5 should end things abruptly, and let's see if I could have had much better technique, and I strongly sense that I could have. Knight c4 makes sense. Knight g4 it did not like. Okay, knight g4 was third choice, but knight takes f5 was first, and then knight c4, just getting out of the way simply. Makes sense. I didn't have to compromise my pawn structure for no reason. But I did see that more than likely it's bait. He's going to capture, which in turn gets rid of his bishop pair, and now queen d2 was right. It liked bishop takes e5 for a second, then it was jumping to something else. Rook e1 it likes better, which I considered, but I didn't see the follow-up. Rook e4. And you're just giving a pawn back in order to get full coordination. Makes a lot of sense. Shuts down black's activity. I don't hate queen e1, but rook e8. And what happens after I take and go king f2? Really, the triple pawns aren't enough here. I don't know if this is horizon effect or what, but I would have thought that this rook and pawn endgame is just completely winning. If I try to trade? Really? I guess he can just go g5, but his pawns aren't enough. It's not enough ruin for me to win. Interesting. King f6, king g5, and I guess you have to stay with them. a5, a4. Still not following. And if he steps there, we step there, so the dance begins. And it actually wants you to sack the pawn here. Makes a lot of sense. And yeah, it's just a bunch of dance of the kings. But yeah, I misevaluated the triple pawns. Go figure. But yeah, I'm insistent upon going to this endgame. And it's important that I don't trade off the rook until I get maintained. And I'm actually making use of my triple pawn, making sure it's freezing these guys. And now just a little stutter step. My opponent had 5 seconds, and I've got a comfortable amount of time. And that will do it for this Rossolimo game.